I'm simply telling you, yes, we have some awful Republicans. Yes, a lot of Democrats are pretty awful too. But if you believe this story in the Washington Post, you either can't read or you don't want to read because it's totally, completely false. It is a made-up, fabricated myth. You know, the Washington Post is always there to tell you a story, not the story. This is not a serious journalism outlet. I'm genuinely, I'm not kidding. I said this on Hannity's
No, we all know that
night.
now.
Yeah, them and the New York Times. Yeah, of course. I mean, their democracy dies in the darkness tagline is hilarious because the darkness is the Washington Post. They're always there to tell you a story, a narrative, a fable, a myth. And that myth has kind of a learning point you're supposed to take from it. Unfortunately, it has nothing to do with the actual facts. So I want you to look at this headline. I want to hat tip Josh Holmes on Twitter, former McConnell staffer, who did a great job dismantling this absolutely ridiculous article from the Washington Post. Here's what's going on. This Paycheck Protection Program, which was a federal government effort to pay people not working because of the government-imposed shutdown, has already run out of money because of the popularity of it. Hundreds of billions of dollars have already been scooped up. You probably heard about it. Now, the Republicans and some Democrats, not all, a lot of Democrats are blocking this, want to replenish the program with a couple $100 billion more of borrowed money nonetheless, in order to pay people. Now, amazingly, who's in the way? The Democrats, Pelosi and Schumer. Look at this headline of the Washington Post. This is hilarious by the hapless fake journalist guy, Jonathan O'Connell, who I've never heard of, thankfully, until today. Listen to this headline. White House and the GOP face heat after hotel and restaurant chains helped run small business program dry. What? So just to be clear here, the story, these hapless losers at the Washington Post, the story they want you to take away, not the real story, is that this program to back up your paycheck, pay you for not working because of the shutdown, that this program is facing backlash because restaurants and hotels, those evil restaurants and hotels, are scooping up all the money. Who else owns a hotel? Donald Trump. Kind of a you think? They're scooping up all the money, and the backlash for that, Joe, that these evil restaurants and hotels are taking all the money, the backlash has been focused on the GOP and Trump. It has. That's fascinating because it's the GOP and Trump, whether you agree with the program or not, that are pushing to replenish the program. You didn't know that? So let's go piece by piece through this to show you how the Washington Post debunks their own nonsense in their own story. And of course, they bury it at the end. So first, we've been told, Joe, that this program is run dry and you're not getting your paycheck protection benefit from the government. You're not getting that because it's those evil restaurants and hotels. And by the way, Trump owns a hotel too, in case you didn't know. They did. So what would you say, Joe, if restaurants and hotels, before you put that up, that screenshot, Joe, just asking, not a joke, not a trick. What would you say if the restaurants and hotels are sopping up like a sponge all the money, and Trump owns a hotel, don't forget that. Would you say they're taking like 90% of it, right? Sounds about right? Because they've taken it.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah. They're taking all of it, man. Yeah.
All of it. It's all
greedy,
great.
evil.
Let's go to the screenshot, see what the Washington Post. Buried down at the course at the end of the story. Spending on hotels and restaurants accounts for less than 10% of the total money funds dispersed so far, according to the SB. Well, 10, 90, 10, 10, 90, 90. Amazing how they bury that down later in the story. Kind of incredible how that happens, no? In their own story. Restaurants and hotels. By the way, I tell you, Trump owns a hotel too, just in case you didn't know that. Because the Washington Post, if you're watching us on YouTube, this is the wink and a nod. The Washington Post, Trump, this is all evil restaurateurs, yacht sailing, private jet flying, evil restaurateurs and hoteliers. Those evil rich people. So, by the way, love it. By the way, if you work in a restaurant or hotel, you don't matter because you work in an evil industry. So your paycheck, according to the Washington Post, forget it. You don't matter. Washington Post, restaurant employees, hotel employees, double barrel middle finger for you. I'll try to keep it family friendly, but you get the idea.
Yes.
You don't matter one bit. even though they debunked their own premise in the story they wrote. That hotels are less than 10%. Of course, you got to read the story to do that. Most Washington Post readers won't actually read the story because they're liberals, and many of them, unfortunately, have the reading comprehension of a kindergartner. So now we'd assume also, Joe, listen how they phrase this, that because the GOP is facing backlash. Keep in mind, I'm not covering for the Republicans, okay? We have enough awful Republicans out there where we can engage in bipartisan criticism on this show often, and I totally get that. I'm not some party shill, not interested at all. But I'm telling you for a fact that is the overwhelming majority of Republicans on the Senate, House side, and especially in the White House, President Trump, have been pushing for a clean replenishment of this. Just put the money in there. It is the Democrats blocking this. That is a fact. It is Schumer and Pelosi. Why? Because they want their identity politics provisions in there. We got to take care of this group and we got to take care of that group. Remember, they wanted how many white people do you have on your board in the prior phase one of this thing? It's Pelosi and Schumer that are holding this up. Just read their own headlines. It's not the Republicans. Listen to this, Joe, hilariously, how the Washington Post frames this. Second screen cap from the piece. There's something in common with all the names I'm going to mention. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, you get to read ahead here. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, along with Senator Ben Cardin, Jeanne Shaheen, and Ron Wyden, wrote to Mnuchin and the Small Business Administration Administrator, Yevita Carranza, on Friday, asking that the PPP be replenished. What do Ben Cardin, Ron Wyden, Chuck Schumer, and Jeanne Shaheen have in common? They're all Democrats.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah. So the Washington Post conveniently leaves out that, in fact, it's Chuck Schumer blocking the replenishment. That's not in question. Just read their own statements. They're blocked. They'll give you the various reasons for why it's Schumer and Pelosi doing it. But the Washington Post, in an unbelievable retconning of history, is now suggesting that because Schumer wrote a letter with all these conditions requesting the replenishment, the Republicans don't want conditions. They just want to put the money in there. That it's Schumer and a bunch of Democrats requesting the replenishment. This is hilarious. They missed the whole Trump press conference yesterday where Trump's the one out there saying, hey, we really need to replenish this fund. They missed that whole thing. They only put the Democrats in. You can't. Folks, I'm genuinely sorry if you have been snookered into believing the Washington Post is actually giving you the story. I'm sorry. I am really sorry. I'm not kidding. You are being suckered either willingly or because, just being candid, you don't have the intellectual capacity to figure out you're being suckered. Did you not read the story? Less than 10% of the funds have been taken by restaurants and hotels. I thought they bankrupted the fund, restaurants and hotels. I thought they did that. And then you really believe that it's these four Democrats that are pushing for the fund replenishment, despite Schumer being on the record blocking the replenishment, despite the conditions he wants imposed. Do you not do any homework? Again, as I say often, I can't tell you who to vote for. That's not my intention. It's not. I am a Republican. I'm a conservative. I never vote Democrat ever. I'll write someone in. I did that once in Maryland in a local city, county council race for the Anne Arundel County Council. I did that once. I wrote someone in. Remember, Paula? I wrote someone in. I would never vote. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm simply telling you, yes, we have some awful Republicans. Yes, a lot of Democrats are pretty awful too. But if you believe this story in the Washington Post, you either can't read or you don't want to read because it's totally, completely false. It is a made-up, fabricated myth.
You just heard The Dan Bongino Show. You can also get Dan's podcasts on iTunes or SoundCloud and follow Dan on Twitter 24/7 @DBongino.